Hello everyone and welcome to Kids Connection A to Z of Advent. Today our letter is E and it's E for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is Mary's cousin. There's the dog coming to say hello too. I'm going to read to you from Luke chapter 1 verse 5. My story begins with a Jewish priest, Zacharias, who lived when Herod was king of Judea. Him and his wife Elizabeth were godly folk, careful to obey all of God's laws in spirit as well as letter. But they had no children, for Elizabeth was barren, and now they were both very old. One day, as Zacharias was going about his work in the temple, the honour fell to him to enter the inner sanctuary and burn incense before the Lord. Meanwhile, a great crowd stood outside in the temple court, praying as they always did during that part of the service when the incense was being burned. Zacharias was in the sanctuary when suddenly an angel appeared, standing to the right of the altar of incense. Zacharias was startled and terrified. But the angel said, "Don't be afraid, Zacharias, for I have come to tell you that God has heard your prayer and your wife Elizabeth. She will bear you a son, and you are to name him John. You will both have a great joy and gladness at his birth, and many will rejoice with you, for he will be one of the Lord's greatest men. He must never touch wine, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit, even from his birth. And he will persuade many a Jew to turn to the Lord his God. He will be a man of rugged spirit and power like Elijah, the prophet of old, and he will precede the coming of the Messiah, preparing the people for his arrival. He will soften adults' hearts to become like little children's, and will change disobedient minds to the wisdom of faith." Zacharias said to the angel, "But this is impossible. I'm an old man now, and my wife is also well along in years." Then the angel said, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the very presence of God. It was he who sent me to tell you this good news. And now, because you haven't believed me, you are to be stricken silent and unable to speak until the baby's born. For my words will certainly come true at the proper time." Meanwhile, the crowds outside were waiting for Zacharias to appear and wondered why he was taking so long. When he finally came out, he couldn't speak to them, and they realised from his gestures that he must have seen a vision in the temple. He stayed on at the temple for the remaining days of the temple duties and then returned home. Soon afterwards, Elizabeth, his wife, became pregnant and went into seclusion for 5 months. "How kind the Lord is," she said, "taking away the disgrace of me having no children." A few days later, Mary hurried to the highlands of Judea, to the town where Zacharias lived, to visit Elizabeth. At the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's baby leapt within her, and she was filled with the Holy Spirit. So as Elizabeth's baby jumped inside her when he heard Mary speak, we wondered if you wanted to play a game as well. It's called the jumping game. And maybe you and some of your family members could line up, and every time somebody says Jesus, you all jump, and you can see who's the first to get to the end. Or maybe you want to play a wee game of I'm going on a trip. Mary got packed up and she got ready and she journeyed along to go and visit Elizabeth. And maybe you could play a game of I'm going on a trip, and you would take one person at a time to say, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to take a suitcase. And the person next to you has to say, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to take a suitcase and then they add something else onto it. And you can keep going right round as often as you like until you forget what's been said. Or you can work your way through the alphabet and take one letter of the alphabet at a time. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.